Hello, welcome to East West Horizon. This is California. Looking at the world, world turmoil will inevitably lead to the suffering of ordinary people. The Russian-Ukraine conflict has driven people away from their homes, and their homes has been destroyed. The spread of the pandemic in Asia has forced people to lockdowns. The United States is deeply trapped in inflation, and the basic living costs of the people have increased dramatically. Powerless people are hurt the most. According to the data just released by the U.S. Department of Labor, the CPI has increased sharply since last August, the worst in the 40 years.
Remember, last month's number, the March numbers, were very inflated. The April numbers came off very inflated numbers. But I think it is the beginning of a moderating trend in prices as we go forward in here.
In last August, the U.S. Department of Labor's Consumer Price Index hit a 40-year high. The Russian-Ukraine conflict emerged on February 24th this year. The jet lag of nearly 7 months was covered up by the U.S. government. At a White House press conference, they blamed the war and Putin are the cause for the U.S. domestic inflation and energy problems. Mainstream media reporters have asked directly and sharply whether the Biden administration will blame Putin for all the problems. The White House press conference was silent at that moment. Regardless of their stand, the reporters at the scene applauded the question. Price inflation can be seen everywhere. In some areas, food prices have soared by almost 30%. The corresponding import and export industries, small businesses, and the middle and lower classes feel the pressure from inflation. Kitty Chen, head of retail and business banking at East West Bank, described the current situation from banking point of view.
And when you're talking about food costs, of course, most of the food that we have are imported. So the import shipping cost has gone up a lot in the last 2 years, from about maybe $3,000, $4,000 a container coming in to now over $15,000.
Does that impact your client?
Yes, of course. It impacted the client and it impacted the importer. And of course, when you impacted the importer, they're gonna pass on the cost to the retailer, and the retailer will pass on the cost to the consumer. So if you're saying that, just simple frozen shrimp coming in, or simple, frozen seafood coming in, maybe one container is $40,000 in terms of cost. And in the past, it's only like $3,000 to $4,000 in terms of the shipping cost. You're talking about $44,000. And now, with $40,000 cost in terms of the seafood, the shipping cost right now is about $15,000, $18,000. So the cost now is no longer $44,000; it's now $58,000. So that obviously increased the cost over 25 to 30%, and that 20-30% will pass on to the retailer, distributor, and end up to the restaurant, and of course, all the people coming to eat, coming to the restaurant or buying to go, they all have to suffer the higher cost. So that's inflation.
The Asian American community has been hit more severely, since there are many small and medium-sized enterprises in the Chinese American community, and there are also many mom-and-pop stores. Many new immigrants and elderly have a monthly income of only about $2,000, and the pain caused by inflation is huge. The current ruling Democratic Party focuses on serving the poor, middle, and lower class. These people are Democratic constituents. However, after the introduction of many grand spending policies, the actual results are quite different. Whose responsibility is the problem? The entire policy is not on the right track? Experts believe that the current inflation will hurt middle class.
Well, I do think inflation is a major issue in the near-term environment, in particular for the Democratic Party, principally because their constituents, the people in the middle to lower income, are really the people who are getting hurt the most by the rising costs of food and energy, and the rising costs of a lot of components of CPI and PPI, and therefore they're being hurt. And it's true, lower and middle income houses are being squeezed. And to that extent, it is a very, very important issue to tackle the inflationary environment.
At the same time, President of the U.S. and Russia exchanged words on food issues. President Joe Biden blamed Russia for the latest spike in global food prices and visited a family farm in Illinois this Wednesday.
The real reason I'm here is to thank American farmers. Thank farmers. You feed America. You got us through a pandemic, and you're literally the backbone of our country. It's not hyperbole. But you also feed the world. And we're seeing with Putin's war in Ukraine, you're like the backbone of freedom.
President Joe Biden's visit to Illinois comes as the White House is struggling to rein in inflation on many fronts, from gasoline to food. U.S. gas price hit record high on Tuesday, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine in late February dramatically worsened the outlook for food prices. The White House announced actions on Wednesday aimed at helping U.S. farmers boost food production and lower food prices, including doubling funding for domestic fertilizer production and increasing technical help for nutrition management tools. The administration will also increase the number of counties eligible for double cropping insurance for planting a second crop on the same land in the same year, the White House said. Biden declared this week that combating inflation is the administration's #1 priority, echoing repeated national polls that show Americans see it as their greatest concern. As if responding to President Biden's accuse, Russian President Putin declared the record harvest year on the next day. He said that Russia is one of the world's largest wheat exporters and will increase wheat export this year. Russia competes with the European Union and Ukraine for supplies of wheat to the Middle East and Africa. It continues to export despite difficulties with logistics and payments caused by Western sanctions on Moscow over what Russia terms its special military operation in Ukraine. Putin told a meeting of top economic officials in Moscow that Russia expects to harvest 130 million tons of grain in 2022, including 87 million tons of wheat. If this happens, which we are counting on, it could be an all-time record in Russia history, Putin said. Higher exports from Russia in the new July-June marketing season could help to partly meet rising global demand in the event that Ukraine's exports remain low and Kiev does not regain access to its Black Sea ports. Russian exporters have largely managed to solve problems with logistics and the transfer of payments caused by Western sanctions imposed on Moscow since late February, and are exporting wheat from Russian side of the Black Sea and sporadically from the Azov Sea. What has to be pondered is that millions of Americans may have their taxes increased due to the worst inflation crisis in 40 years. Taxes are increased because high inflation triggers a tax bracket climb, which occurs when low and middle income taxpayers are pushed into the upper income bracket. However, due to the rise in the prices of most commodities under inflation, although the income of those groups has increased, the purchasing power has not increased accordingly. In the end, people in the middle and lower classes will pay for inflation, and living standards will plummet as a result. That's all for today. Who do you think is responsible for the inflation? What have the grand spending policies done to trigger the inflation? How can we solve the problem? Please leave a comment to express your opinion. Thank you for your attention. I would like to see you in the next show.